Hello. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I've got an abnormal amount of energy today. I think the camera's a bit wonky. 1 second. There you go. Now you look a little bit more straight, don't you? Ooh, am I allowed to say that? Anyway, today we are talking about how to unleash your medical creativity beast. I think our world, medical world, I'm a doctor by the way, our medical world is extremely algorithmic and very systematic and very guideline based, and it's very hard to be a creative soul, a creative being within this world as a doctor and in other professions as well, don't get me wrong, okay? So, even if you're not a doctor, don't worry, you are allowed to listen to this, right? But I am specifically talking about medical stuff here. So where does our energy, our creativity, our creative energy go as a doctor? And this is something I've really struggled with and something that I've really wanted to tackle over the last few years. It's why I started my YouTube channel. It's why I started my podcast, because I'm fucking chatty AF. I talk way too much. Sorry. And I think there are definitely ways to be more creative as a doctor. I think they are hard to find, however. So, I'm going to talk today about why creativity is important as a doctor. Because, you might just think, well, I am an algorithmic doctor robot. I do procedures. I sign consent form. I do discharge summary in algorithmic way. I do history of presenting complaint, past medical history, drug allergies, medications, etc., etc. That went on for way too long, I'm sorry. Anyway, you go through everything in a systematic fashion, and then where does creativity come into that? So, we're going to be talking about why it's important, because I think it is, especially as a very creative person myself. And then we're going to be talking about why there is no creativity in medicine. A bit more in depth than what I've already just discussed, of course. Also, I want to discuss the differences between being a creative person as a doctor and being a content creator as a doctor, because there's a difficult line to balance there, alright? Let me tell you. And then I'm going to get on to how to be a creative doctor inside work and outside work. It's hard to be a doctor inside work, so I am trying to find ways. If you've got any more, please let me know. We're also going to be talking about what's the most creative specialty. So without further ado, let's just get into it. This intro is way too long. I'm sorry, I'm a blabbery fucker. I can't help it. Okay, let's get into it, come on. By the way, guys, if you're new here, I'm Dawn. I am a doctor, apparently. I did stop for a bit because of a few reasons. You might just want to go listen to my other podcasts, before. But the one about toxic work environments is particularly pertinent. And I took a few months off, alright, despite my finances telling me otherwise. Although that wasn't really my fault, but anyway, don't need to get into that. But I've taken a few months off and I've been basically just creating content that whole time. Now, I am an extremely creative person. I constantly think in creativeness. I am constantly thinking a bit more laterally, outside the box. I'm a daydreamer, I'm an overthinker, and I want to express myself in creative ways, I think anyway. So I've been doing some drawing, I've been doing lots of podcasting, I've been doing lots of video making. I have a YouTube channel. If you're not listening on the YouTubes, watching on the YouTubes, then I have a YouTube channel as well. If you do want to go watch that, it's more fun of me. Yay! And I've struggled very much with feeling very boxed in and contained. What top am I wearing? As a doctor, trying to, rein in my creativity and really stunt it. Now, something I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, because I've actually gone back to hospital. I'm doing that because it's been a long time coming. Basically, it's taken a long time for me to get onto the bank. If you're a doctor listening to this, you're going to know what the bank is. But for those of you who don't know, it's basically, if you're a doctor, you join a group of doctors who will say, yeah, I'll do that shift if there's one going. That is a bank of doctors. Now, I work as basically just a locum. I don't have any other, subspecialty skills. I like it that way. I'm a bit fucking all over the place, so it works well for me. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, as I always do. So yeah, I've recently gone back to the hospital and I'm quite liking it. I think because I'm in a different place, I also need money, so that helps, and that's making my life a bit better. But what I've noticed, I've gone back, what I've noticed is people they like me. That sounds like a really weird thing to say, okay? But I went up to AMU the other day, the acute medical unit, and I was like, hi. I don't know, maybe I was just fucking happy. I don't know what it was, but these nurses, the two sisters, the nurses in charge, were like, you're amazing. Can you stay? And I was like, I'll be back, but I'm going somewhere else. Bye. And I don't know what it was. And I was trying to figure out why. And now I see them and I'm like, it's my best friend. There you are. And I don't know, we've met each other like twice, but like we're in love. So I am wondering if that is because, number one, I'm a happier person. I've had some time off. Great. Number two, I'm back earning money. So that's always good. But number three, I have been creating. Now, I've been, I don't know, I'm just all over the place. I'm throwing loads of shit out. I don't know what's going to happen. But my creativity has really been expanding. Like, you know, like that, I think it's called elephant foam. Like that foam that, you know, you put some kind of chemical in it and then it explodes and it's like colourful. That's me. I'm elephant foam. And that's been me over the past, you know, few months, right? So I wonder if and also I've been doing acting and improv, and I think that's just made me a more open, expressive person. And I'm also, you know, if you're in a job that you like, then you're obviously just going to be a nicer person, right? So, duh. So yeah, I'm having a good time, I would say. And yeah, I do wonder if I am expressing myself more creatively, and I'm also just expressing myself more. I think I've been in a lot of jobs where I've been so emotionally stunted because I am either too scared to be myself, or I don't really feel like I have any autonomy, or I don't really enjoy it, or anyway, I just become this kind of shell of a human that just does the job but with not really much personality. And I'm really trying to find the balance between where can I bring my personality in and where can I you know, where do I have to rein it in a bit? Now, what I've noticed is, again, I'm off on a tangent, but this is kind of, you know, it makes sense when you think about what I'm talking about. I've noticed that my humour and personality, I think tends to match people that are more in the acute fields. I don't really favour the you know, maybe the ward subspecialties very much. So I probably get on better with acute medicine and emergency medicine. I think that might be where I land. Anyway, that might also be why these nurses like me. I don't know what it is. I wish I knew what the difference was, but I do think my creative journey has had an impact on it. So firstly, why is creativity important as a doctor? Well, it makes you a nicer person. I don't know, does it? So I think me just being able to express myself, and that is a big thing for me, is often I have a lot of emotions, don't we all? But as a doctor, I feel like I can't really express them. But as a creative person and as a content creator, and that's where I've really struggled with the kind of difference between, okay, I'm a doctor, I'm a content creator. They're both very different, and we'll get onto that in a bit. But you know, how I completely lost my train of thought there. I don't know. I was talking about emotions, expressing them as a doctor. I'm sorry, my mind just, it's not like hugely linear, I'm afraid. So I think maybe being more creative for me. Oh yeah, I was talking about how I struggle to maybe express myself as a doctor. I feel that I need to be like a robot doctor. And as a content creator, I very much express myself. I want people to see my personality, and they're very different worlds, you know. Like as a content creator, being abnormal is, or you know, unusual or doing something different or outlandish or whatever is required. It's like celebrated. But being a little bit weird as a doctor is actually more frowned upon, I would say. So you could argue that's not being creative, that's just personality differences, blah blah blah. But I think being creative is an expression of your feelings and therefore your personality. So that's my argument. You can argue against me if you want. Now, I do think if you're more expressive and you're maybe just more fun, people will like you more as a doctor. I don't know. People will I don't know if they'll trust you more. Now that's a big old question right there. I think if the nurses like you and other people like you, then maybe they'll trust you more. I feel like that, that's just anecdotal. That's a theory. I haven't done any fucking formative studies, all right? But that's just what I'm thinking. Now, obviously, if you're completely the other end of the spectrum, like, woo, whoop-de-doo, I'm having fun and I'm a doctor and I'm rolling about on the floor. Now, of course, maybe people aren't going to trust you as much if you're doing that in your professional role. But what I'm saying is, if you're more expressive of your emotions to a certain extent, you don't want to be crying over the keyboard or, in the corner at board round. But if you're more expressive of your emotions, then maybe people will relate to you a bit more. And I have found that, like, the more open I am about my even negative emotions, I'm not feeling good today, I'm feeling really anxious for whatever reason, I didn't sleep very well. People, because I might not be that physically expressive, people are like, oh, okay, Dawn is tired, like that's why she's behaving like that or whatever. So people might be a bit more forgiving of your shortness or things like that. So as a I'm a more verbally expressive person, I would say. I'm trying to be more physically expressive as just as a general human, especially someone who wants to get into acting. And that's something I'm really honing. I am trying very hard to be more physically expressive. But I think as a doctor, you're kind of trained to stand in a certain way, a bit soldier-like. And training that then out of you is a bit more difficult, isn't it? So another reason why we might be more creative as a doctor, or it might be a good thing, is that, oh boy, probably my most favourite part of being a doctor is stories. When I was a child, my dad used to read me a bedtime story every night, and it would usually be Greek mythology. Yes, I was that cool. Although I think that's more indicative of what my dad was into rather than me. But, I was an impressionable child, so I was fine with that. And I know all about Medusa and all about Icarus and his, abnormal flight path and his destiny. And, Rupert the Bear, is that what he was called? Rupert the Bear? That's a bit bloody simple, isn't it? Rupert Bear? Anyway, I read a lot of stories about him. I read a lot of stories. Humans fucking love stories, don't we? Yes, we do. And medicine is all about stories. So, tell me what happened. What have you come in with today? And then a patient will go into a story. And I love it. I love storytelling. I love learning people's stories. And being a doctor is all about perfecting the art of your own storytelling, really, isn't it? Because although, yes, it's kind of a linear story, somewhat, there are new ones. You can tell a story well, or you can tell a story fucking badly. Now, you look back about 10 years ago, maybe not that long, maybe like 8 years ago, me as a second year medical student, oh boy, was my story bad. This is, I think she's 59. She could be nearly 59, like maybe next week. But anyway, I think she's 59. She's called Mary, and about 4 years ago, she bought a cat called Doris. Now, Doris then got run over, and that was the start of Mary's depression. But Mary's depression got a bit better. But Dawn, what's she come in with? She fell over and she hurt her ankle. Well, why is the cat important? Well, I don't really know, but the cat, she just told me about the cat, so I thought it was important. But the cat died, and maybe that made her a bit sad, and then she started crying about the cat. So anyway, that was a little quick excerpt from 8 years ago when I was a second year medical student, and that's probably how my storytelling went. Now, flash forward to now, I would probably deem Mary's cat, Doris, somewhat irrelevant in the story and more of a side note. Now, would we exclude Mary's concerns about Doris? No. But would we include that in the storyline? No. So, you got to hone those skills as a storyteller, as a doctor. Now, I would say the how that relates to creativity is just, storytelling is important in creativity. I mean, realistically, I've been telling you stories all this past 15 minutes on and off, I just told you about my story about being a second year medical student, and now that is a story. And I would say even in any kind of art form, like music, their stories, drawing is, there's a story behind the drawing. Oh, sorry, I just burped. You might have heard that. And in any kind of storytelling, you need some kind of emotion, and being a good storyteller is all about highlighting and kind of moving people through an emotive state. And you could say that, well, you don't want emotional stories as a doctor, but I'm sorry, but if you want your consultant to listen to you, your storytelling needs to be somewhat good, Anyway, I think one of the other really important reasons to being more creative as a doctor is because our jobs are stressful and hard. So we need some, especially as a creative person, and a human, just a bloody human, you need some kind of creative outlet. And you could say, I'm not a very creative person. Well, fine, just squash your beast. But I think there's creativity in all of us. I'm sorry, there is, and there's emotions in all of us. Therefore, you have some kind of creativity. Now, creativity doesn't need to just be like, I made a video, or I made a music, or a music? What? I made a song, or wrote a song, or wrote a book or something. No, it doesn't need to be just that. And I'll get into it in a bit more detail in a bit, but there are definitely other ways that you can be creative, and you don't need to be artistic, I wouldn't say. All right. I also think creative acts can be extremely mindful as a doctor. Whenever I edit, oh boy, you best not disturb me, because when I get into that editing flow, I am irretractable from it. I just get into and I forget to drink, I forget to breathe, I forget to eat, I forget to go to the toilet, I forget everything. Everything goes out the window when I get into, and you could say maybe that's not good. Yeah, that could also be the case. But I also think, it's just really, I'm only focusing on that. It's very mindful. And how often do we get that? When you're in hospital, you've got 5 million people wanting your attention. And that's really hard. So it's nice to come home from a stressful day and just to, zone out and just be focusing on that. We also go through quite a lot of emotional stuff. I'm sorry. You might not want to hear that. You might want to pretend that we don't. But look, we do, okay? People die. There are lots of sad things happening around us. We might have had a really shit day. You might question your decisions. Why was that? Did I forget something? Did I do something wrong? Will I get sued? So you need some kind of release from that, and I think sometimes we're not good at talking about it, but if you've got another creative outlet, that can be really good, as well as mindfulness and as well as reducing our stress. If I haven't sold it to you already, I don't know what will sell it to you, okay? Because that was fucking convincing. All right, so for me, it's just an expression of my personality, which I definitely think I hide in medicine. Sorry. I actually had somebody say to me, oh my God, Dawn, I watched your videos. They worked with me. I watched your videos and you're a completely different person. And I was like, yeah, because I'm a doctor, a robot doctor. I can't be behaving like myself at work. I can, but not to patients, right? Or not to consultants that are if they're, a bit straight-laced. I can't be myself. I can't. And I've definitely learned, and this is why I think I'd be a fucking sick actor, because I have been acting my whole life. I have been a doctor, and I have learned how to act like a doctor. I am not doctor by nature, because I wouldn't say that I am straight-laced at all. Okay, in fact, my friends would describe me as eccentric, a bit grasshoppery, a bit all over the place, and I've struggled, all right? put my bloody hands up, put my little paws up. I have struggled to be a doctor because I am clever enough for it, obviously, and disciplined enough for it, but I've struggled to like mould myself into that person that needs to be behaving well. And anyway, I think I've managed to do it. So let's get into the next section. Why do we not have creativity? Now, I think if you look very deeply for it, you might find it, but we'll get onto that a little bit later in the next section. The section after the next section, sorry. Actually, no. The section after the next section after the next section. So, why is it stunted? Look, okay, when shit hits the fan, algorithms save the day. Guidelines save the day. They do. And I do think we need guidelines. In fact, when... You can't really be creative with, somebody's potassium is 0.8. Like, let's see what happens if we just don't do anything. What happens? Well, they're gonna fucking die. So it's nice to I also think it takes some pressure off us. We go, I followed the guideline, so the guideline told me what to do. And it takes some pressure off of us making a decision about everything. Okay, somebody's potassium is 0.8, they should probably go to ICU. I shouldn't have said potassium as 0.8 because that is unlivable. Potassium of 1.8, probably also a bit unlivable, but less unlivable. 2.8, no, because that's not that dangerous. So, 2. Okay, if you're not a medic and you're listening to this, you're probably like, shut up. Potassiums? Who cares? I'll just let you know potassium that's normal is 3.5 to 5. And it's a significant electrolyte that, if it's abnormal, is very dangerous. So potassium of 0.8 is unsurvivable. But that depends how quickly you got there. But whatever, shut up, Dawn. So I do think we need guidelines. I need guidelines. This is why I write out a plan, okay? Here it is. Here's my plan. I need a plan, otherwise I already do ramble on for an hour, but it would be even worse. Alright, so yeah, I do think creativity and guidelines and algorithms are few and far between, if they're at all, really. And I think as a doctor, you enter this automatic, I do anyway, kind of an automatic brain mode where if somebody drops dead on the floor or collapses or whatever, I'm like, and we, it's because it's drilled into us, right? But you're like, airway, call for help, check for a breathing, check for pulse. Do you know what I mean? You enter ALS mode, advanced life support mode, and you just start doing it. You don't want to be creative in the way that you approach a collapsed person. It's nice to have an algorithm because you just go into that automatic cycle of life support. So it is good. I also think creativity is actually, if it's not natural to you, I think it's fairly natural to me, but I think it, and I still find it quite mentally tiring, to think about things. I think in particular being a content creator, that makes it especially hard, but because, I'm trying to think about how to, I'm planning full hour-long podcasts, and I'm planning videos which have to be fairly intense and topics and etc. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. You don't just make a video and fucking throw it out there. There's a lot more. But I keep going, but I don't want to go into too much detail because you didn't come here for how to be a content creator and a doctor. I actually did do an episode on that a long time ago though, so I don't know if it's outdated. But anyway, I do think it can be hard on the mind. I think it's quite thought intensive for me especially. Now, if you are the kind of person who has a skill, you're really good at drawing and it's just natural to you, then, or you've learned it over a long time and you don't need to think about how to do it, then is it really going to be that thought intensive, or is it just going to be a mindful exercise? Now, that's a good question. So I think it depends on whether you're trying to learn something creative, and if you're not and you're just doing something, for me, this is I'm just chatting now that I'm used to it and I can do it. I'm just chatting to myself, I don't know, whoever listens. But yeah, I think it can be quite hard to go from doing quite a mentally challenging job to then trying to be creative and let's say you're writing a song. That's quite challenging. Now, you can write a song a bit, less intensely and just do it casually, and is much easier. If you don't have any, battery died. Who knows if that even saved it, but whatever. If you don't have any constraints on, you need to get a song out, any pressures, then creativity can just be free-flowing and quite enriching or fulfilling and quite mindful. But if you're like, I need to get a podcast episode out today, then maybe it's a bit more like you have to really pull your shit together to try and think of what you're going to do. Okay, I also think creativity is not efficient as such. Like, it's not as efficient as following a protocol, and that's why it's not particularly frequent in hospitals. And also, I think it can be quite but not as good to be a sort of free thinking, a bit out there doctor. It's easier just to fit in, be normal, and be nothing exceptional, unless you're achieving academic success. Because being different as a doctor is a lot more, you stick out like I've had it in myself, being a content creator and putting yourself on the internet, and then that can come back to bite you just generally as a human, but also just standing out will also bring haters and will also bring people that don't think you should be standing out, and people that don't think that the way you talk to a patient, it might be a bit more casual and a bit more like, a bit less like algorithmic, then they might not agree with that as much. So I do think it can be a bit of a difficult line to walk along, and I am still trying to figure that line out. I don't think I've figured it out fully, but look, isn't life a good, fun learning curve? Yay. Okay, I have covered it occasionally, the difficulties of being a content creator as a doctor. I think the main thing, and you can obviously be a doctor that's sensible on the internet, but for me, I never wanted to be that. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to be fun. I wanted to be entertaining. I wanted to be a bit different. I didn't want to be a doctor who teaches medical students. Obviously I have done medical student teaching, but I didn't want to be someone who's like, this is how you do the UK CAT or the USMLE, and like doing study techniques and shit like that. That wasn't my vibe at all. I would rather talk to people about how, stuff like this, a bit more, I guess, abstract stuff, a bit more like fun stuff. I don't like doing stuff that's academic, maybe. Although I can do academic stuff. I feel like I've done that, like I did my GCSEs, did my A-levels, I did my medical degree. Girls just want to have fun, okay? And I am a girl who wants to have fun, alright? So, there are definitely doctors out there who are sensible for, to maintain the integrity of their doctor personality. I don't think I'm not sensible, like I'm not going around doing illegal things. I think I've got a personality, but I've definitely struggled, especially with humour. I think, senses of humour, styles of humour can be difficult to gauge, and it has come back to bite me like once, but let me tell you, I have a blog and it got reported to the GMC. The GMC sent me an email and they were like, hi, we've had this report that you've been writing blogs about patients. And I was like, well, I have, but mainly about my experiences. Now, I am not an idiot, okay? I am not going to go writing Mr. Smith who lives in this place. I'm not going to go divulging medical confidential information. I mainly wrote it about myself, but obviously it has some patient not details, but it was revolved around a patient, or not even, but the thing is, it wasn't revolved around one patient, and I never give any ages. I changed the age, I changed the name, I changed the whatever, I changed everything, but people still think it's about them. Now, it was funny because the person that wrote to the GMC said that I'd broken some kind of Hippocratic oath, but you can't they didn't really have any grounds to report me for it, but anyway, so they still did it anyway, and the GMC just said, we're not following this up or anything, but we just thought we'd tell you for learning and put it in your portfolio, etc. It was quite shocking, because firstly, the blog wasn't even about that person. So, and I was just like, you've obviously read it and thought that was about you or whoever I was writing it about, but it wasn't. And I was just like, God, someone went to the GMC to report me. Like, anyway, that was a big whole palaver, but thankfully it didn't go very far at all. But that was a time that it was like, ugh, and I really questioned, should I be having my anonymity online? And well, it felt a bit too late now, and anyway, I'm just a bit more careful about being like, this isn't about anybody in particular. I've changed all the names, dates, everything. Like, if you think it's about you, it literally isn't, because it's about nobody. It's about like 5 people, so good luck figuring out who it's about, because I don't even know. I didn't even remember who it was about, like, but I knew it wasn't about that person. Anyway, blah 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 blah. So it is hard being a content creator doctor. I think it's becoming more common and less kind of frowned upon, and I think there are certain ways to go about it. I can do another episode on that, because I feel like the one I did was a long time ago, and I've definitely got some more insights since then. I think the main thing is time, and being a content creator takes a lot of time, and you often do it for free at the start, and you have to really want to do it and really want to be committed to doing. So but I think being a creative person and a content creator don't have to go hand in hand. You don't have to go putting all of your creative works out there to be a creative person. So I just wanted to lay that one on the line, but also just be careful about, where you're putting it, and I know that you will be, don't you worry. Okay, so I probably don't need to cover that one. We all know about confidentiality, and it's basically been drilled into us like ALS. Anyway, how to be creative outside of work. Now, we're all going to say we have no time. Now, I'm quite lucky in that I am a locum and I work once every 2 days, sometimes once every 3 days. I purposely don't do any shifts back to back because it somewhat kills me. And I, having a podcast, things like that, I want to stick to schedules. So having a day off in between allows me to do things like this, so it's Monday today, I'm just sitting podcasting. It is actually bank holiday, so whatever. But yeah, so I do have breathing room in between shifts. Gal still has to pay the bills though, so now how are you going to do it if you don't have any time, if you're a trainee? It's harder, don't get me wrong, because it does take time to be creative. But I think to say that you don't have any time to be creative is incorrect. It's a matter of you just need to make time. And I journal at least once a day, if not twice a day, even when I'm working. I just do it whilst I'm having breakfast. I do 3 small pages of A5. No, it's less than A5. I think it's this size. I don't know what size that is, but it's just less than A5, but bigger than A6. And it's well, you could, some people might do more, but you just need to say what is possible for me. Now, ways that I think you can be creative are, you need to make time, okay? Stop waiting for it to happen. But you don't need to make it a regimented thing, I must be creative every day. Do it because you enjoy it. Don't do it because you feel like you have to. But you also need to realise that it's going to be something that you're going to have to make time for, unless you're I need to do it. But I'm assuming the fact that maybe you're listening, creativity is kind of evading you. So what I'm saying is you need to make time for it, okay? Work can get in the way. It can. Now, there are ways that you don't need to make extra time in your day. You don't need to get up earlier or sacrifice anything. If you're travelling to work, how can you be more creative when you're travelling to work? Well, if you're sat on the bus or whatever, just write your thoughts down. Or I often plan things when I'm traveling, like podcast episodes, or if I'm having any creative thoughts, I just write them all down. I constantly have a pen, and I'm trying to find the book that I have. So I always have a piece of paper near me or in my pocket, or one of those little moleskin books, one of those A6 books. Always, if you see me on a shift, be show me your paper. And I've got paper. or I write it on my phone if I don't, if things are really bad. But yesterday I had a piece of paper in my pocket and it's just for creative thoughts, because sometimes they just come to me and I'm like, oh, and I have to write it down. Otherwise I forget, it just goes out my brain. But it's like creating time in everyday things that you do. So, you're traveling on the bus. Well, what is your creative thing to start with? It could be drawing. It could be having a podcast, in which case you can't really podcast on the bus, but you can plan it. Now, trust me, podcast, you do have to plan. Don't think you can just start talking and it will make sense. Some people might be able to do that. I don't know who you are, but maybe just a conversational podcast. But you're still going to do some research beforehand, because you need to know what you're going to talk about and what direction you're going in. So I do think, trying to figure out what your form is, and you don't need to have one specific form, but, do you draw? Do you write poems? Just do it in times where you're static. So, when you're eating breakfast, or although there is some merit to eating mindfully, you might want to get up a little bit earlier just so you can, after breakfast or before breakfast, do a little bit of whatever it is. If your thing is making music or just playing an instrument, well, what about watching less TV and just playing the guitar whilst you're sat on the sofa or something like that? Or if it's drawing, just have a sketch pad with you at all times, and just a pencil or whatever you use, or have an iPad with you. Like, you don't have to have like a full easel and everything, but and it's just, it might be just a rough draft. It's not as though my ramble, my random ramblings on random scraps of paper are in, a set in stone. I often then make it onto like a formal piece of paper and start going from there. Now, the other thing is, I personally, for my creative outlets, I love pen and paper. I just love it. I tried doing notes on my phone. I tried using Notion. I just find that maybe it works for me because I'm bloody all over the place. But I can go from like writing here and then I'll just suddenly be over here. And it's like, that's how my mind works. And if you're the kind of person that can write in a straight line and write a continuous stream of thought, then great for you. That's not my vibe, okay? So that's why I have loads of, I wish I could like show you right now, but I usually have, oh my god, there's one right there. It was hidden by the computer monitor. I have loads of these. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're just listening, it's literally just a notebook, like it's nothing special. But I have loads of them. They are pocket sized, or they're literally like not heavy at all. You just have them with you, and you can see here, it's just random shit. Like, there's nothing special about what I'm writing there. I've written, I don't even know what it means. Streamlining. Not easy. Be kind to yourself. Accept mediocre or okay. Just get it out. It's literally whatever my brain thinks, I just shove it onto a piece of paper. So I've always got these little notebooks everywhere. I've got thousands of them dotted around my house, because there should be one in every room, because with a pen, so that I can just blurt it out. Now, I do use my iPhone notes sometimes, but every plan, and I've got here it is. This is my folder for all of my creative stuff, and it's a mess, like my life. And it's actually not. It's actually quite neat inside. Here you go. It's got these little, what are they called? Bookmarky tab things, and then it's got my storytelling info here, and then I've got this thing where I write in the little notebooks, and then I take them out, and then I put them in with sticky tape and put them in there. So that's my brainstorming. So anyway, what I was saying is, just have the equipment around you, have the stuff around you to enable creativity to be easy. You don't want to have to, I'm gonna have to go upstairs and find my pens and find my sketchbook and get it out. Just have it next to your bedside. I've literally you should see my bedside. Firstly, it's completely surrounded by books. It's got my Kindle, and then it's got another book underneath it, and then it's got a crossword book, and then on the floor it's just loads of magazines and a few other books, and then often like some notepads or some little ones like these. It's ever changing. It's an ever-changing environment. And then I've got my journal as well in the drawers. So I have stuff for creative outlet all around me, because I know firstly how important it is for me, but also you want to reduce the barrier to doing so, and just having it there and just expelling it whenever it comes, because I never know when my creative juices are going to get flowing. Often it's in the shower or driving, in which case I use voice notes, because I don't always listen to the voice notes, but at least I know that they're there and I've gotten rid of whatever creative energy I needed to get rid of. That sounds so spiritual, but it's kind of true. So let's talk about creative outlets outside of work. You might already know yours, in which case great, but you might also want to try loads of different things. I've written down writing. For me, okay, so my creative outlets are fucking loads, all right? Making videos, so editing, cinematography. Yeah, I like taking videos of nice things. Pictures. I have a photography Instagram, if you want to go look at that. It's called at Bristol Vlogs. I might change it, but it coincides with the name of my other Bristol YouTube channel, which is specifically about Bristol, because I love the place. So creative, so the people are crazy, and I love it. Like, they're as crazy as me, so that's good. And so you might write, you might make music, you might write music, you might sing, you might paint. One that people don't see as creative, but I would argue that it is cooking. Now, yes, you can follow recipes, but they're always you can also be creative when you cook. You can add something a little bit extra into it. You can change the recipe a bit. And I would say that's still a form of creativity, and also it's really mindful, and also you get to eat at the end of it. And also you can take it for meal prep. So do not tell me that you do not have time to be creative. You can be creative in ways that are beneficial to you as well, not just like seen as wasting time. Like, you can multitask. You can cook and have it as meal prep for the next day, and then you don't need to worry about lunch for work. Perfect. I'm trying to think of other ways. Maybe just like exercise can be quite creative. You might make your own workouts, and then at least you're exercising and stuff, being creative at the same time. But there are also, like, how are other ways? Whenever I'm out and about, so I take my dogs for a walk, I just see things, I just take pictures of them, and that's like walking dogs and being creative. I just think it's good to have, feel like you're achieving, I guess, being productive, right? Because although I am not always productive and creative, it is sometimes when you're low on time, or when you're doing something else, you're like, oh, I'm walking the dogs and I'm taking pictures. So there are also other ways, such as acting. Most doctors don't act, though, like as in go to acting classes. I don't know, there's just a lot of people are scared of it, which I get, and a lot of actors are scared of improv as well, which is kind of ironic. Isn't our whole lives just improvising? Like, you can improvise, and please just do it and get over the fear. It's done. Learning languages. This is kind of why I moved to Bristol, not just because of the language thing, but for all of the creativity that Bristol brings. I think it's a beautiful place. I think it's underrated in terms of its beauty. I think it is industrial, but it's also got a lot of organic beauty within it. And it's got a lot of acting, improv, language. So I think surrounding yourself with creative people and creativity is also super useful, because it will bring out the creativity in you. Now, let's get on to the final aspect, because I'm kind of getting hungry. How to bring your creativity to hospital? Bit difficult. I'd love your help on this one, alright? Because it is hard in a place that's so structured and so stiff. It can be hard. Now, there are obviously more creative specialties. Plastic surgery, very creative, but also very hard to get into, and you have to be quite dedicated, because I did think about that. It is like an art form, doing plastic surgery. Now, you could do aesthetic stuff, which is a bit easier to get into. You just have to do some courses, but also I don't necessarily agree with putting filler in people and stuff like that. I think plastic surgery for making, people feel better about themselves for things that they can't control is a bit better than trying to, be creative to sorry. Oh my god, you see the waveform on the podcast thing, on the recording, you can see where I've sneezed. I have some ethical considerations about like whether we should be really filling people with fillers and stuff like that. Not saying I disagree with it, not saying I would never get it myself, but I would rather use my medicine for good and not be contributing to people's body dysmorphia. That's just my opinion. I think if somebody has lost lots of weight and they want a tummy tuck, that's a kind of different story. Like for me, that's still aesthetic, but it's also for kind of other purposes. Like I don't know if I'm just getting a bit semantic here. So the way that I'm often creative when I speak to patients is obviously I ask them questions in different ways. I approach the history a little bit differently every time. I think of people as like, they're telling me a different story, but also I use analogies. So when people don't quite understand what I'm saying, I try to use an analogy to explain it a bit better. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Oh my god, I just had a thought that I've started watching Wild Croc Territory on Netflix, and I just remembered that I can go and watch it after I finish, so I'm really excited for that. Not that you wanted to know, but I just wanted to put that in there. But I was excited. I am excited. There are also things that you can do to make changes in the hospital, which can be a creative outlet. So a lot of people join the mess committees, which I think can help with making changes, which can be creative, and also you feel like you're making a difference in your environment. Contributing to making changes, now I think this is a bit dull, but quality improvement projects, and I've actually thought about one to do myself, and that is how to streamline the process of becoming a locum doctor in a couple of the hospitals that I've applied to, because it's taken a long time, and I think that would use my creativity in a positive way. I want to create like a nice flow chart, which sounds really sad, but it's something I'm quite passionate about, so I think I might help do that. There's also loads of artwork in hospitals, like it's like an art gallery, and you could actually put your artwork in the hospital. I don't know how you do it, but I'm sure there's a way. People have obviously done it in the past, so it's not impossible, and they use it as like an art gallery, and I love looking at the art. Like, it's my favourite thing to do. I think also going to the gardens rather than just sitting on the ward or in the office having your food can instill some kind of creative juices, because you're looking at plants and like looking at things around you, and that's actually quite nice. Another way, and I've done this, is teaching students. Now, you have to be creative in the way that you approach teaching students, because otherwise it's not fun. And you also need to think about what you're going to teach them and how you're going to teach them it, and creating like maybe some visuals and PowerPoints and stuff like that. So yeah, those are all my current tips of how to be creative as a doctor, as in like especially in the hospital. But don't just be constrained by those hospital walls. There are other ways to break free. If this episode helped you, yay! Thank you for listening to the end. Give it a little thumbs uppy boy. Give it a 5-star rating. Nothing less, nothing more, please. And leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. Hi. Just to let you know, the audio episode is released 2 weeks before the video episode on YouTube, so you can actually go over to that. I'll leave it in the description down below, or the cards at the end, and you can actually just listen to it sooner. And if you want to watch the video, I do put it on Patreon, and you can support me making my content, because Gal does it for free, and that would be super helpful. So yeah, if it did help you, I'd love to hear from you. Honestly, I really would, and I give my listeners a little shout out, so you are not undervalued, trust me. If you want me to do any other topics, I'm well up for hearing your suggestions as well, so leave it in the comments down below. And if you have any ways to be creative in the workplace, whether you're a doctor or not, it doesn't matter, let me know, because I'm always looking for ways, and I'm sure other people would benefit from your suggestions too. So thanks so much for listening. I upload every Monday and Thursdays every week, unless I'm dying, which I was a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't then. But yeah, I'll see you in a few days.